Hi, good morning, everybody. Or maybe it's afternoon for you. I don't know. I'm feeling kind of sleepy today. I've stayed in my hoodie. I've gotten really comfortable. I hope you're comfortable too as we go ahead and dive into since and for. And we're talking about time in the present perfect. I had to glance at my screen there for a second just to make sure that I'm launching this all right. Hopefully, you can see my screen. I know you hear me say that lots and lots, right? Okay, let's go ahead and get started with since and for, time in the present perfect, and let's begin. So I have this question for you, and let's pretend it applies to you even if it doesn't, okay? The question is, how long have you been in the United States? Take a look at the first two answers here at the top. So let's take a look at these first two up here. Which one is the correct way to answer if you wanted to say that it was 5 years old that you came to the United States? Would you use since or for? What about the second set of questions? When, or answers, I should say, when I have 15 years, so we're talking about the length of time that you have been in the United States, 15 years. Would you say since 15 years or for 15 years? Which is the correct answer? All right, so watch this video and let's see if you're right. And hopefully by the end of this video, you'll be able to explain not only your answer, but why. So we're talking about since and for, which accounts for time. And there's two conditions that we need to meet when we're talking about since and for. The first condition is that the event began in the past. So the first question is, did it begin in the past? If we could say yes, we ask the second question, is it continuing up to now? Okay, does it continue up to now? If that answer is yes as well, all right, then we can use since or for. So we need this to be addressed first. It begins in the past here, and it continues all the way up until now. So let's use as our example being in the United States, okay? We can pretend for our instance here that it began in the past. And we're also going to pretend that it continues today. So we're going to meet both conditions. Came to the United States in the past, still in the United States today. All right. Now, for our imaginary circumstance, let's pretend that it began when you were 5 years old. And of course, you're still here today. So those are going to be our specifics for this particular example. Okay. And when we would go to say our answer with this specific information, we would say, I have been in the United States since I was 5 years old. But do you know why we would use since instead of for? Let's take a look. We use since whenever we are talking about starting at a specific point in time. So when we are diving back into the past and we're referencing this event that started in the past and continues up until now, when we are talking about when it began, the starting point, and we're talking about a specific point in time, we need to use the word since. Here are some examples. Are we talking about the year it began, like 2002 or 1952? For example, I have lived here since 2010. 2010 was the year everything began. It was the year I moved here, right? All right, fine. So starting in 2010, I moved here, and here we are in 2020. I'm still here, so we have to use since because we're mentioning when I started. We would also do the same thing for month, right? Whenever we are mentioning a specific month, like May or September, whenever we're talking about the month something got started, that specific point in time, we need to use the word since with that phrase. It hasn't been warm since October. That was the last time it was warm. The cold started in October. It's been cold ever since, right? Since October. We could also use day. We can also talk about something getting started a few days ago. For example, let's say on Sunday, I came down with a cold. I started sneezing and maybe I got a headache. Okay. And here we are, it's Thursday, and I still have this cold and I still have a headache. I have had this cold since Sunday. It started Sunday, continued Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You get the idea, right? And all that time I've had this cold, but I'm saying since Sunday because that's when it began. We can also use it with time. For example, I have been here since 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock is when I arrived. That was my starting point in the past. It is now, let's say, 11 o'clock. All right. But 9 o'clock was when I got started. I wanted to talk about that point in time when I arrived in the past. So I would say since 9 o'clock. And with age, this is one that's sometimes forgotten, but we shouldn't forget this one. Age goes with since, because with age, we are referencing specific points in time. I was 5, or at age 16, all can be converted back to a specific point in time, whether that's a year or even a specific month, okay? But they all correlate to a specific point in time. I have been driving since age 16. I won't tell you what year that was, but it was a specific year. So let's take a look at our question again. This was the very first question that I asked. How long have you been in the United States? All right. So your answer could be, I have been in the United States. Now, would you say since I was 5 years old or for I was 5 years old? Right. So you know now because we're talking about a specific point in time. 5 years old, that was a specific year, right? A specific point in time. So we need since specific, since specific. Okay, keep that in your brain, since specific. So why not for? When do we use for? Let's take a look. We use for when we're talking not about a specific time, but a length of time. Okay? For is for a length of time. For example, when we talk about year, not a specific year like 2002 or 1952, but we're talking about how many years. Now we're talking about not when something began in the past, but we're talking about the number of years it has been that this has been occurring. For example, I have lived here for 10 years. I'm not talking about the starting point. I'm talking about the length of time that I have been living here for 10 years. Of course, this also applies to months. Maybe I want to talk about how cold it's been, but I don't want to talk about when it started. I just want to talk about how many months this has been happening. It hasn't been warm for 5 months. It started 5 months ago and it's continued up until now for 5 months. All right, maybe I want to convert this to days rather than saying I have had this cold since Sunday. Maybe I want to reference the number of days I've had this cold, 4 days, in which case I'm going to use for. I have had this cold for 4 days. It started 4 days ago. It's continued up until now. Our conditions have been met, but I want to talk about a length of time. Of course, we can also talk about time here. How long and how much. I have been here for 2 hours. Okay, I'm not talking about the fact that it was 9 o'clock when I came here. I'm talking about the fact that I came here, the time is now, and between when I came here and now, 2 hours have passed by. I have been here for 2 hours. Remember, The present perfect helps us state something that began in the past and is continuing up until now. That's all part of the present perfect. We're just adding these time clauses on here so that way we can give our listeners some more detail about what we're trying to help them understand. All right. So taking a look back at our original question, we look at that second set of answers. I have been in the United States. Now, if we're talking about 15 years, which one do we need? Since or for? We need for because 15 years is a length of time. That's not a specific time. We're not talking about starting at a specific time in the past. We're talking about a length of time. Good. So here is our chart. It's the same chart that we saw in the beginning, but rather than mark 2005 as 5 years old, I've now marked it with the year 2005 and the year, of course, that is right now is 2020. So we could say, I have been in the United States for 15 years. All right, here's your quiz. So feel free to hit the pause button and go ahead and work on these. What would you put in the blanks, since or for? All right. Hopefully you took some time and got your answers down. Here is the way it works. Did you notice that April, that's a specific month? April is specific. Specific uses since. 3 weeks is a length of time, right? When we're talking about length of time, we need for. Taking a look at the second pair, we were both 7 years old. That's very specific. That's a very specific point in time when Robert and I were both 7 years old. So we would need since. That's very specific. 12 years is a length of time. So that would require for. And down in the third example, 6 months is another length of time. For my birthday is a very specific point in time, right? My birthday would be since. So you can see here that we can even talk about points in time that aren't necessarily the specific year or the specific time or the specific day. We could talk about in general, my birthday is a specific day, right? That's still being very specific. So since it is specific, we would use since. All right, everybody, good luck. Keep studying. I know you can do it. Take care.